name is Julia, and in this video, in the next few minutes, I will show you the most common mistakes you can make whenever you apply for a new job. So today I have 8 mistakes I do see very often as a recruiter. So stay tuned until the end, and I will be happy to hear what you think. So without any further ado, let's start. So let's start with a short introduction. I today have most common 8 mistakes I often see as a recruiter. Don't try to get me wrong, mistakes are important because the more practice you have whenever you apply for a new job, and maybe even if you receive negative feedback, it's still feedback. So mistakes are not inherently a bad thing. Try to learn from these mistakes and try to consider 8 points. And I guarantee you this is not something you can read in a book, but rather something you will experience in the practice. So without any further ado, let's get started. My name is Julia. I do have, a few decades of experience working as a recruiter and as an HR manager. I've seen thousands of CVs already in my life, and I have experience throughout all or many companies, and I do have quite broad background. So these are considered as, well, general mistakes I usually see. So here are the 8 mistakes. You ready? Number 1 mistake is I see that very often. The CV looks very outdated. What does it mean? It does not usually mean that you need to have a specific template or a specific design. The design is not so important. Actually, most of the designs are quite good and okay, but you need to think about the person who reads your CV. Many often the recruiter does not know exactly what kind of experience you have. For example, if you worked as a marketing assistant, let's say, I do not know what that means. Does it mean you're, I don't know, working like a secretary, or do you have an own budget, or do you work as a content creator, or what does it mean? So the CV is outdated does mean that you need to explain your CV and you need to explain your experience. That also means long blocks of text are not necessarily recommended, and try to use as much bullet points as you can make and try to explain your experience. That is really the most important point and a crucial point you should take away from this session today. Whenever you have experience or job you describe, then use or try to use at least 3 bullet points to explain what you did. Because otherwise, I do not know what really a marketing assistant or secretary means. It could mean anything, really. So try to explain that. That is my mistake number 1. Many CVs I see are quite outdated because it just says, I worked as a secretary for the last 5 years, for example. So try to avoid that. The next mistake I see very often, that people are like too defensive. What does it mean? It means many people are not very confident about their experience. So think about whenever you having a job interview or you apply for a job, you're trying to sell something. That also means that if you did anything challenging or if you had any successes, it's a good idea to show them. So many people might have an older age, for example, and especially those candidates over 50 maybe are very defensive or not very confident during the interviews. I do understand that because many companies nowadays, they really reject those people, which is not a good thing, definitely. But try to be as confident as you can. And always think about it. It's not just the person who's looking for a new company or applying for a new company, but you do also have the opportunity to really choose a new company. Not every company fits to your values and your experience. So it's not only the company that chooses the applicant, but also other way around. So try to be confident. And if that company rejects you, you will definitely find another job sooner or later. So that is my mistake number 2. So mistake number 3 now. Yeah, hiding gaps. That is something I see so often. Many people want to take a sabbatical, let's say, or care about their parents, or have children, or took a time off for vacation, or whatever the reason is. And do not try to hide that. Just write down what you did, educating children, or sabbatical, or whatever the reason was. It's perfectly fine. And do not try to assume that the recruiter will not see what you did, because if the recruiter reads carefully, he will definitely see that you have a small break in your CV, and that's perfectly okay. No one expects you to work, I don't know, 50 years in total without any break. That's perfectly fine. So do not try to hide it. Just explain what you did and try not to invent something. For example, traveling to improve my intercultural abilities or something like that. That's ridiculous, really. Just say, I was traveling and that's it. Yeah. I mean, it's also important to be honest and try to be confident again, and try to explain maybe how that now helped you to be that person you are at the moment. But do not try to hide your gaps. It's perfectly okay. So, mistake number 4. That's a classic, an absolute classic. Many applicants I talk to or I speak, they do not prepare properly for the interview. Whenever you have a job interview, for example, you should at least have 2 or 3 questions prepared, which means that you should know what the company is doing. Number 1, I have had many interviews where people didn't even know what the company was producing, or they didn't know anything about the products. That's not something I can recommend. That's number 1. And number 2, you always have the opportunity within the job interview to ask questions at the end. And that is also a thing as a recruiter I am super interested in, because I always want to see what is important for that person. Are you asking some questions about your new company car? Or are you interested to learn more about the team or the responsibilities you have, maybe? And there are always questions about your responsibilities, the team, the task in general, the company strategy, whatever. But do try not to ask only questions about company benefits, which I've also seen. So that's the classical mistake number 4, a lack of preparation. Try to research the company before you go in that interview, prepare interview questions, and try to be well prepared. Mistake number 5. That is a point which is also super important nowadays. Try to demonstrate at least some digital skills. Many applicants I see, they always forget about mentioning the software they have experience to work with, or they have other systems or workflows they know. and try to at least make a good impression at that point, which also means that your CV, for example, should not be delivered in Word as a Word document, but as a PDF, for example. I've received, I think 2 months ago, one application, and that person sent me, I think it was like 30 different screenshots of his references, a cover letter, etc. So I had to read, for example, I had to read here in this case like 30 different documents. So try to think about what the company needs and try to demonstrate at least basic amount of digital skills, and do not forget to include your software experience and the experience with workflows you have. The next mistake number 6, is if people, especially if they have, of course, a video interview, that they are not testing the technology before. That is super critical. I don't know, if I have a job interview, let's say in at least 50% of the job interviews, people are too late. They do have problems with their microphone, that camera. So try to test the system before and the equipment. I know there's always something that can happen. That's true. But if you test it before, it gives you more confidence, of course. And very often I only have like half an hour for the first interview in total. So if you spend 10 minutes fuddling around on your microphone or whatever, that's not a good thing to do. So trust me, you will be calm and you will feel more confident if you test the technology before and try to be professional, really. So that's super classical mistake number 6. Now, mistake number 7 is something I've mentioned now a few minutes ago. That is really just to have too many files. You cannot send 10 different Word documents, or you cannot send screenshots. I've had screenshots last few months. That is incredible. Just send me one PDF with all the documents you have. But try to read carefully what the company really needs, because very often the company only needs one document, which is the CV. And I personally prefer the CV over all the other documents. That means many companies do not need a cover letter, they do not need references, and they do not need something like motivational letter. Many companies only accept a CV, and that is perfectly fine because the CV is the absolute most important document. So do not try to overthink it. The CV still is your most important document, and you will definitely need the CV before you need any other documents. If you have a good cover letter, that's okay. Many applicants nowadays, they prepare a cover letter using AI, which is also fine. But those cover letters seem to be very similar. And so many companies are just leaving away the cover letter because they are similar anyway. So mistake number 7 is definitely having too many files. And the last mistake may be a bit surprising for you, but I often hear the recommendation from Headhunter, for example, which is you need to have a CV which is not longer than 1 or maximum 2 pages. That is really okay if you start very early, maybe after college or whatever, looking for a new job. But if you have 30, 40, 50 years of experience, it never fits into 2 pages. So I personally have a CV which is around 8 pages, and it's perfectly fine, because if the recruiter is not interested in your CV, he will not read it. He will scan your experience first, your college education, and if those 2 points do not fit to the job, he will not continue to read anyway. So try not to make 2 pages or 1 page out of your CV. I personally, as a recruiter, do read every CV. If I'm not interested, okay, then I stop reading after a few minutes or seconds. For example, I see the education is absolutely do not right. But if you have 30, 40 years of experience, I want to know what you did. And I want to know how you performed, for example, that job as a secretary. What tasks did you have and what exactly did you do? And if you explain me a bit more about experience, it of course takes more pages. So if you still feel a bit unsure, then you can perfectly prepare 2 versions, for example. One longer version for the companies, and all of the companies I know, they all appreciate if you explain a bit more in detail about your experience, and you can prepare another version which is really very, very short, just, I don't know, the highlights from your CV for headhunters, for example. But do not make the mistake and try to cram everything into 1 page. I'm always super unhappy about these CVs because I never understand anything what that person did about the experience, and it doesn't make any sense. So try to avoid that. Now, the question is, of course, how can I support you? If you're interested, I can offer individual coaching for you. And I also give trainings if you're interested how to improve your CV, for example. And I do offer honest and straightforward feedback. Many applicants, they do have the problem that they either receive no feedback or very general feedback. And I can promise you, as a recruiter, I know what the companies are considering and what the companies need. And I promise to give you honest and straightforward feedback. That is something I can do for you. If you're interested, there is a free offer. You can contact me on the link below and just send me your CV. It's perfectly fine if in a very anonymous version as well. Just write me a message and I will give you free tips and tricks how to improve your CV. So thanks for today. And if any questions come up, just write me. I will be happy to hear about you. Take care.